Thanks for calling the Friend Zone Hotline, where mixed signals come to be sorted. My name is Jim. How can I help you today? Whoa. Just a moment. Oh, before we start, how old are you, sir? 14. Oh, okay. Continue. Whoa, oh. She called you bestie? Right. Just a moment. Let me put you on a brief hold. Classic early teen heartbreak. This is going to be good. Let's listen in some more. Sir, are you still there? Oh, okay. Continue on. Okay, all right. I'll slap you there. I already know what's going on. Here's your situation. You develop feelings. She has not. You're treating crumbs like a full meal, and she's treating you like a non-threatening emotional support human. This isn't romance. This is a side quest. Bro, you're not understanding me. Let me just, I'll say it in your language so you can actually understand me. If she hits you up with a bestie, that's a hard skill issue. If she says you're wholesome, you've been NPC'd. And if she's left you undelivered for 2 days and then sent a meme, my guy, you're running 0 ping, 0 res background process energy. No, this isn't working. I'm exiting the lobby. Jeez. It's like the 13th one today. And they all think they're Sigma skibbity Rizzlers. I miss the 80s. Man, I really should start charging for this service. Welcome back to 40 Frames Ago, the show where we turn back the clock 40 years to uncover the cult favorites, bold experiments, and cinematic curiosities that define the era. Hey everyone, I'm Jim. Last week we dove into the sun-baked terror of the cult classic road thriller, The Hitcher. But this week we're sliding firmly back into the neon bright world of 80s teen cinema with Pretty in Pink. This beloved Brat Pack era romantic dramedy trades dusty highways and dread for high school hallways, thrift store style, and one of the decade's most iconic soundtracks. It's a story steeped in classic clashes, big feelings, and the kind of teen movie chemistry that defined John Hughes' mid-80s run. If you're new to the show, here's the deal. Every week we jump back 40 years and look at what was happening at the box office. Pick a film that premiered on this date and dig into everything surrounding it. The cast, the crew, the home video releases, the production quirks, and all the fascinating details I uncover along the way. Then I wrap things up with my thoughts after revisiting the movie. Alright, before we drown in 80s alt-rock and pastel heartbreak, let's do what every teen did back then. Stand outside the theater, stare up at that giant marquee, and pretend we're capable of making a decision. Let's see what was playing when Pretty in Pink was at the box office. Let's rewind to the 9th week of 1986. Okay, buckle up because we've officially time warped. It's not 2026 anymore. It's Friday, February 28th, 1986. And this theater lobby is buzzing. Holy cow, it's unhinged in here. The box office phone is ringing. There's some kid over here karate chopping an arcade. Hey, stop it. God, people. The soda machine's like hissing like they need to refill the carbonation. I'm looking up at the marquee and there it is, the top 10 movies this week. There's 2 new movies this week, House and Pretty in Pink. So here's the real Friday night dilemma. If you got 1 ticket in your hand and 3 pass in front of you, what do you choose? Do you go with House, the brand new horror comedy that promises monsters in closets, Vietnam flashbacks, and a whole lot of practical effects weirdness? Or do you drift towards Pretty in Pink, the neon-lit teen romance that already is winning over crowds with its John Hughes charm, killer soundtrack, and the Andy Ducky Blaine love triangle? Or do you skip both newcomers entirely and stick with something already playing? A safe bet. A known quantity, a movie that's building buzz all week. If it's 1986 and you've only got one shot at all these movies, what ticket are you buying? All right, let's step back from the past to the future to the past. Time to fire up the computer and see what the box office had to say. We've actually got a brand new #1 movie this week, House. It opened strong with about $7.5 million. But the real story is how close the race is, because Pretty in Pink also debuts this week and pulls in basically the same amount. It's a photo finish for first place. What makes it even more interesting is that the per theater average. Pretty in Pink is playing in only 827 theaters compared to House's 1,440. But it's packing in more people per screen. That's a solid sign of momentum. Down and Out in Beverly Hills slips down 2 spots into third place, while The Color Purple is still holding steady in fourth. And then there's Hannah and Her Sisters, which is exploding upwards, a 187% increase, as it expands into more theaters. Its per theater average is the highest in the whole chart, over $11,000 per screen. As for some familiar faces, The Hitcher, which I covered last week, drops out of the top 10, but still adds another $1.5 million to its total. Meanwhile, Youngblood and Iron Eagle have officially fallen off the list. Now that we've seen the box office, let's go check out the movie poster. All right, here's the poster for Pretty in Pink. It's like one of those posters that you kind of already know what's going on, who the romantic lead is, who's the best friend, and whose heart is going to get broken first. I mean, it's pretty obvious. I mean, it's not obvious, but you can tell how they have it set up here. I also have some foreign release posters. Here's 2, and they very similar to the first one, just slightly different. But then I have these 2. These are completely different. And honestly, this is one of the few times that I actually kind of like the original poster a little bit better. So anyways, now that we've seen the posters, let's go over to IMDb and get the official description for this movie. According to IMDb, the setup goes like this. A poor girl must choose between the affections of her doting friend and a rich but sensitive playboy. So right away, I mean, the descriptions, I don't think it's fully accurate here. I mean, I know they're trying to get short, but it just doesn't seem quite right. I've seen this movie before, but it's been a little bit of time. You know, it is a teen movie, so we're going to get the high school hierarchies, the thrift store fashion statements, the awkward confessions, and, you know, turmoil, this emotional, teen stuff. So I mean, it sounds simple on this description, but, knowing John Hughes, he's got a pretty good knack for storytelling. And so we'll just see how it goes. All right, enough surface level stuff. Let's dig into the cast and the crew. Before Pretty in Pink, Molly Ringwald was already the undisputed face of the John Hughes teen movie machine. She burst onto the scene with 16 Candles in 1984. And then leveled up with the ensemble powerhouse The Breakfast Club in 1985. By the time 1986 rolled around, Ringwald wasn't just in the Brat Pack orbit. She was the gravitational center. But Pretty in Pink marks a key transition point. After this film, her John Hughes era begins to fade, and she steps into a wider variety of roles. Roles that include the pickup artist, For Keeps, and Fresh Horses. She also had a long run in indie and European films like Malicious and Office Killer. She did stage work in productions like Cabaret and Sweet Charity, and then decades later she reconnects with a whole new generation through TV hits like The Secret Life of the American Teenager and Riverdale. She never vanished, she just kept evolving, following the kind of unpredictable career path that makes looking back at her filmography genuinely interesting. Before playing the most ducky version of Ducky who ever duckied, John Cryer was still carving out space in Hollywood. He had early roles like No Small Affair with Demi Moore in 1984, and even a blink and you'll miss it supporting part in Superman 4: The Quest for Peace in 1987. But he wasn't a household name yet. Pretty in Pink changes that instantly. Ducky becomes one of the most memorable best friend characters in all of 80s cinema. Funny, loyal, chaotic, heartbreaky, and dressed like the world's most enthusiastic thrift store curator. Afterwards, Cryer's career doesn't follow the typical teen idol launchpad. He stars in movies like Hiding Out, Hot Shots, and Hot Shots Part 2. He does a ton of TV work, including guest roles in The Practice and The Famous Teddy Z, and does some behind-the-camera work, dabbing in writing and directing, until he lands the role that rewrites everything, Alan Harper on 2.5 Men, which runs for 12 seasons and redefines his entire career. And in recent years, he's even reinvented himself again, playing Lex Luthor across the Arrowverse shows. Not bad for a guy who once spent his big scenes sliding across a record shop floor in spats. Going into Pretty in Pink, Andrew McCarthy was already part of that rising Brat Pack wave thanks to St. Elmo's Fire in 1985. He had that earnest, quiet, intense energy that made him the perfect foil for the louder personalities of the era. But Pretty in Pink is the movie that cements him as that soft-spoken, sensitive 80s leading man. It unlocks a run of roles that become staples of VHS collections everywhere. Films like Mannequin, Less Than Zero, Weekend at Bernie's, Fresh Horses alongside Ringwald again, and Kansas. He keeps acting through the 90s, but his biggest reinvention comes later. McCarthy pivots to directing and turns out to be good at it. He racks up credits on shows like Gossip Girl, Orange is the New Black, The Blackest, and The Sinner. And because that's not enough, he also becomes a respected travel writer and publishes a memoir. He went from Brat Pack heartthrob to one of Hollywood's most reliable directors, a career with real longevity. Now that we've talked about the cast, let's go highlight the crew. Can't talk about Pretty in Pink without talking about the writer, and that was John Hughes. And this was his first movie that he also produced himself. Before Pretty in Pink, John Hughes was already reshaping the cinematic landscape for teenagers everywhere. In just a few years, he went from a National Lampoon writer to the voice of adolescent America with films like 16 Candles, The Breakfast Club, Weird Science, and writing credits on comedies like Mr. Mom and National Lampoon's Vacation. By the time Pretty in Pink went into production, Hughes had effectively built a new genre. Movies about teens with teens in mind, filled with emotional honesty, humor, and a soundtrack you could build an identity out of. Pretty in Pink is a turning point for Hughes. He didn't direct this one, but his DNA is unmistakably his. Class conflict, romantic confusion, pain sincerity, and characters who feel like they're just one honest conversation away from changing their whole lives. After Pretty in Pink, Hughes' career undergoes a massive shift. He transitions away from teen stories and leans into broader, more commercial comedies. Films like Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, Uncle Buck, and then the era-defining movie Home Alone and its sequel. Unfortunately, John Hughes passed away unexpectedly in 2009 at the age of 59. His death hit hard because it felt sudden, like a storyteller with chapters still left to write. But looking back, his body of work covers an enormous emotional spectrum: teen heartbreak, family chaos, slapstick disaster, and bittersweet nostalgia. And even now, his films still find new audiences every year. Howard Deutsch was the director of Pretty in Pink. And before stepping behind the camera for this film, Howard Deutsch was a rising talent inside Paramount. He built a reputation directing music videos for artists like Billy Joel and Billy Idol, work that caught the attention of John Hughes. Pretty in Pink becomes Deutsch's future debut, and what a debut it is. After Pretty in Pink, Deutsch continues to build a solid, varied career. He reunited with Hughes on Some Kind of Wonderful and jumped into comedies like The Great Outdoors. He followed it up with Getting Even with Dad and Grumpier Old Men, and then returned for The Odd Couple 2. As the 2000s rolled on, Deutsch shifts into television and becomes a go-to director for character-driven drama and comedy. Shows like Melrose Place, Dead Like Me, Gleason, and Young Sheldon. Now that we've talked about the cast and crew, let's check out the home release. Okay, so let's talk about the DVD. About 5 years ago, I did purchase the Steelbook when it came out. And this, I thought would be the definitive edition for this movie. It's a pretty nice packaging. It's got this nice background to it. And it comes with some features. Here's the J card that came with it. This year, actually last year, 2025, they came out with the 4K, which is this one here. And I'll be opening this one for you guys to see on camera. So while I open up this, I just wanted to give you a quick spoiler, a warning. The DVD extras and packaging information will spoil some of the movie because the extras do focus on a specific scene. So if you haven't seen the movie, why don't you stop here, go back, watch the movie, and then come back and start back right here, and we can talk about the features and then discuss the movie after I watch it. Okay, as I was saying, I did pick up the 35th anniversary Blu-ray Steelbook, and in 2025, when I picked up this, I was hoping that it'd make a bigger impact than it really did. I was hoping for more special features, etc. And what it really comes down to is the picture quality is better, but just very minimalistically better, like not much better, actually. I watched a couple scenes on the Blu-ray, and then I followed up with a couple scenes from the 4K, and some of the scenes on the Blu-ray look flat, rough, super grainy, kind of soft focus. Some of the outdoor scenes, really, you could tell. And the 4K does give it a tiny bump, but it's nowhere near the improvement you'd hope for. They still look murky and unresolved, and there's like slightly more refined grain, but it's not a restoration. It's more like turning up the brightness on the same old problems. And if you're hoping that the 4K would come out with a treasure trove of new extras, nope. The features are identical to what was on the Steelbook Blu-ray from years earlier. You get the same featurettes, the same interviews, and the same 2006 era content. And this is where the spoilers come in. The content's about the lost ending. And when you look at it, you're like, oh, great, they have a lost ending featurette. But it's misleading. You don't actually get to see the real footage. I guess they've lost it. It's just a cast and crew talking about the original ending where Andy was supposed to end up with Ducky. Test audiences famously booed it. And it led to a reshoot where she winds up with Blaine instead. Interesting, but not exactly behind the scenes gold. And then again, that featurette is from 2006, meaning the lost ending conversation is now almost 20 years old. One new piece, sort of, it was on the 35th anniversary edition, but it was filmed for that edition, was a director spotlight. And it's solid. It's pretty surface level, and it's kind of thing. It touches lightly on the production, lightly on characters, and then circles right back into talking about that ending again. It's fine, but it's nothing great. It's definitely not the deep dive Hughes fans wish existed. A commentary track, more archival material, or something focusing on John Hughes' writing process would have gone a long way on this new edition. For audio, you get a 5.1 DTS HD master audio track. It's clean, it's balanced, it is exactly the way you want it to, especially with a soundtrack that's stacked like this one. And the music, it really shines, actually. The dialogue is crisp, no weird volume jumps, no artificial surround sound gimmicks. So, bottom line, if you already own the Blu-ray from 5 years ago, you get the Steelbook or the regular Blu-ray, then the 4K I would say it's not essential for an upgrade. Unless you're a completionist and want the best version available, and even then, the improvements, again, are just modest. So, great audio, decent image, but underwhelming extras. All right, so now that we've reviewed the DVD, let's head over to the movie room and actually watch the movie. Rewatching Pretty in Pink in 2026 is a strange experience. On one hand, it's a comfort movie loaded with great music and earnest emotions. On the other hand, it's a time capsule bursting with choices that range from charming to downright baffling. It's a movie that holds up, kind of, but not always for the reasons it thinks it does. Let's start with the obvious high point. The soundtrack. It absolutely slaps. The Smiths, OMD, Echo and the Bunnymen, this is peak 80s alternative, and the surround sound mix brings the music to life in a way the old home video versions never could. The songs float through the film, making the even slow scenes feel like part of someone's dreamy mixtape. And speaking of dreamy, it's wild how much of the school looks like a workplace sitcom. The teachers are basically the same age as the students. Half the kids are smoking in the hallways, and no one gets in trouble for anything. Fighting, mouthing off, whatever. Meanwhile, Andy's dad's storyline feels like it's wandered in from a different movie. There's something there. Grief, unemployment, emotional weight. But the film, it just never commits to it. It just sort of drifts. The film, hints at themes of identity, responsibility, and moving forward, but never actually gives the dad arc enough space to land. And then there's the social economic class struggle, the beating heart of the film. But it's also its weirdest angle. The idea is solid, but the delivery feels oddly surface level. Characters talk about class divisions like they're reading from a pamphlet titled People Who Shop at Record Stores versus People Who Own Record Stores. It's dramatic, but not always convincing. John Cryer's Ducky remains both the film's energy booster and its strangest emotional dead end. Because, let's be honest, Andy never once seems conflicted between Ducky and Blaine. Not for a second. There's no triangle. Just one guy wanting and one girl politely tolerating it. Every romantic beat in this movie is a one-way street. Also, Andy's friend Lona's hair, it just changes like every single time she enters the scene. I think it's like an inside joke. Maybe it was a creative choice, maybe a cosmetic joke, but I guess we'll never know. It's not in the extras. All that said, Pretty in Pink is still anchored by the things it gets right. Molly Ringwald's sincerity, Andrew McCarthy's quiet conflict, Cryer's chaotic charm, and a great soundtrack. Even when the movie fumbles, the emotional honesty shines through. But as a whole, this is one of those films where the pieces are better than the whole. It's enjoyable, it's nostalgic, it's iconic in cultural sense. Yet for me, watching it with fresh eyes in 2026, it's just okay. Not amazing. A movie carried by its style, its cast, and its soundtrack more than its story. Alright, I thought I'd switch it up this week and give you something new. And since John Hughes is such a cultural cornerstone of the 80s, I thought it would be fun to rank my personal top 10 Hughes films, whether he wrote them, directed them, or produced them. And this is my list, but the real question is, what's yours? Because if there's anything guaranteed to start Friendly Chaos, it's ranking John Hughes movies. Here's where I landed. Number 10, Pretty in Pink. He was the writer and executive producer. And I just reviewed it, so you have an idea of my opinion now on this film. Number 9, National Lampoon's Vacation. He was a writer. It's a movie about a chaotic road trip comedy where Clark Griswold drags his family across the country in pursuit of the perfect vacation, only to encounter every possible disaster along the way. It's heartfelt and absurd. Number 8, 16 Candles. He was a writer and director. A coming-of-age comedy about a teen whose family forgets her 16th birthday, sending her through a day packed with crushes, chaos, embarrassing moments, and the kind of awkward hilarity only John Hughes could write. Number 7, Breakfast Club. He was the director and the writer for this. 5 students from completely different cliques are forced to spend a Saturday in detention together, where their walls slowly come down and they discover they have far more in common than they ever expected. It's a defining John Hughes classic about identity, teen pressure, and the stereotypes we hide behind. Number 6, Plane, Trains, and Automobiles. He was a director, writer, and a producer on this film. It's a holiday travel comedy about 2 mismatched strangers forced to survive a disastrous cross-country journey together. With every delay, detour, and disaster imaginable, the trip becomes a hilarious and surprisingly heartfelt lesson in patience, friendship, and pure holiday chaos. Number 5, The Great Outdoors. He was a writer and executive producer. A family vacation comedy where 2 very different families collide at a lakeside cabin, turning peaceful relaxation into a non-stop series of mishaps, wildlife encounters, sibling rivalry, and classic John Hughes-style chaos. A warm, goofy battle of personalities led by John Candy and Dan Aykroyd and their 80s best. Number 4, Uncle Buck. He was a director, writer, and producer. A warm, chaotic comedy about an unconventional, irresponsible bachelor tasked with looking after his brother's kids. What starts as a disastrous family mismatch turns into a hilarious and surprisingly heartfelt story about connection, responsibility, and unexpected ways people can show up when it matters. Number 3, Ferris Bueller's Day Off. He was the director, writer, and producer. A carefree high school mastermind fakes being sick and skips school, pulls his best friend and girlfriend into the ultimate Chicago adventure. With principals, parents, and bad luck hot on their trail, Ferris turns a one-day rebellion into a joyful, stylish, fourth-wall-breaking celebration of teenage freedom. All right, number 2, Home Alone. He was a writer and producer. A mischievous 8-year-old accidentally gets left behind when his family jets off for the holidays, forcing him to defend his house from 2 bumbling burglars using a series of increasingly ridiculously highly creative traps. A perfect blend of slapstick, chaos, heart, and holiday magic. Pure John Hughes mischief from start to finish. And my number 1 movie from John Hughes is National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. He was a writer and a producer. A holiday comic classic where Clark Griswold's quest for the perfect family Christmas spirals into total chaos. From malfunctioning lights to disastrous guests and unpredictable wildlife, everything that could go wrong does, turning one suburban holiday into a wildly relatable, endlessly quotable Christmas meltdown. It's a movie I watch every single year, and I always have the best time with this movie. It's so funny. This is one of those lists that shifts depending on the year, your age, your mood, or whatever it grew up with on cable or renting it from a video store. So tell me, what did I get wrong? What would you move up or down? And what must be on a Hughes list that I left out entirely? Let me know down in the comments. Go on, don't ducky out now. Give that like button a little indication of affection. Tap subscribe if you like choosing that perfect prom outfit, bold, confident, and maybe a little thrift store chic. And don't worry, no test audience is going to boo this ending. Next up, we roll into week 10 of 1986, leaving the pastel washed halls of Pretty in Pink behind and stepping straight into the thunderous, sword-crashing world of Highlander. No more mixtapes, no more prom night drama. Now we're talking immortals, ancient grudges, neon-lit battles, and a Queen-powered soundtrack big enough to level a city block. There can only be one! And that's a wrap on our trip through Pretty in Pink. Let me know what you think. Did you catch this one back in the 80s when the hair was big and the soundtracks were even bigger? Or is this the first time walking through the pastel halls with Andy, Ducky, and Blaine? Either way, grab your thrift store blazer, hit play on your favorite alt 80s track, and meet me back here next Friday. Until then, keep your mixtapes tight and your friendships even tighter. And I'll see you in the rewind.
Neon lights a flicker and the story starts to glow.